Here at the Erasmus Energy Conference, and I'm talking here to Chris Faulkner. He's the CEO of Breitling Energy, $500 million company, and he's known as the Frackmaster in America. When did you get that title, Chris?
You know what? I got that title 4 years ago from Oil and Gas Monitor magazine. I didn't give it to myself. I'm not that vain.
Oh, you got a lot of other prizes, but Frackmaster. I'm very honored to have the Frackmaster himself here coming to Rotterdam. You basically were very enthusiastic about fracking. It brought some good things to the United States. Could you repeat, what did fracking bring to America?
Look, it's a game changer for the U.S., right? You know, everywhere I go, everyone wants to become the next United States when it comes to shale and the oil boom. But, you know, we've been fortunate to have, you know, a history of infrastructure. We had a lot of resource, a lot of technology and equipment, and really the technology was invented there. Coupling horizontal drilling, built to drill sideways with hydraulic fracture simulation of fracking, has allowed us to unlock a treasure trove of natural gas. We have 100 years now supply glut of gas. We have billions of barrels now of recoverable oil because of fracking. Millions of jobs have been created. The GDP.
How many? And those jobs?
10 million jobs, which are direct and indirect. So folks say 10 million people don't work on the rigs. They don't. But when you go to these communities and you see all the economic impact, the growth from oil and gas.
I mean, these are not cheap jobs, right?
No.
What's the average hourly wage?
President Obama has proposed a national average of minimum wage at $10.10. The average oil and gas industry worker makes $44 an hour. So 4 times what he proposes to.
Okay, so 10 million jobs at $40.
Some indirect, but look, about 3 million of those are direct jobs making a tremendous amount of salary, and the families of those workers are now impacted in a very meaningful way because of fracking.
What happened to the natural gas price?
It went from a high of $15 in 2010 to now $2.60. So we're paying more than you guys are paying now back then, and we're paying a fraction of that. You guys pay about 11 in Europe. We pay $2.50. So fracking has caused so much gas to come into the market. The price is now very, very low.
Yeah, which also meant that all the coal electricity plants just went out of business.
Yeah, you know, the swing number on coal is $4. If natural gas is above $4, coal can be produced cheaper than natural gas. But because the price has been below $4 for so long, we're displacing so much coal, turning on natural gas, and it's impacting climate change in a very meaningful way. To give you an idea, because of coal displacement, we've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions just in the United States 300 megatons. The whole world combined from wind and solar is 275 megatons. So as a country, because of fracking, we've reduced it more.
So anybody who is into green energy, thank Chris and thank the fracking energy, because they basically save 300 billion tons of CO2.
Yeah, that's right.
Megatons, that's really good. So lots of jobs, cheap prices, good for the industry, a lot of money. I mean, a lot of companies. How many companies have started fracking? I mean, you were one of the first because you started in 2004.
Well, look, there's a lot of companies that started in a very short amount of time, and they have tremendous success, but they went up, and because the price of oil now has come down, the competition has put a lot of guys out of business because there's now an oversupply of fracking horsepower. So, you know, we're luckily, because the price of oil has come down so rapidly, we would not be able to continue drilling if the service companies had not reduced their prices to allow us to continue to have a margin.
Because you basically built that whole industry on $100
oil
per barrel.
And it went down 60% in a few months.
You survived? I mean, are these companies surviving, or is 50% going out of business?
There's a percentage going out. It's nowhere near 50%. It's according to how much debt you're carrying, and if you can restructure that debt. You know, if you took on $1 billion in debt and you base that on $100 oil, and now oil's at 43 or 50, you can't service that debt because your asset basis doesn't have ample resource to.
How many fracking companies are there?
There's thousands and thousands of small ones. And so, you know, Baker Hughes, Schlumberger, and Halliburton are the big ones. And there's thousands of guys that were competing with them who were getting lots of bids and contracts because there was so much work that had to go around. But now what's happened is Halliburton, Schlumberger, and Baker Hughes are so big, they can reduce their prices so rapidly, it puts the smaller guy out of business because they can bring the margin down so small. And then when the price rebounds, they can bring it back up again. So what you're seeing now is all the smaller guys being kind of pushed out, squeezed out.
I hear, I mean, you said there's 30,000 wells being drilled in a year.
Right. 30,000 new wells at the peak of this was being drilled a year, 2,000 rigs running continually. We're down to about half that now. But think about that. In a 10-year cycle, we would drill 300,000 new wells in the United States. It's just a massive amount of drilling.
And what is the cost of producing a barrel of oil? And now it's $45 or something like that. Well, you can produce profitable for that money and make new wells?
If you think about, there's incremental costs on an existing well today that's already been paid for, already been monetized, the CapEx has been spent. That's a very, very small amount, 12, 15, 20 bucks maybe, some even smaller than that. A new well being drilled, the average development or F&D, find a barrel of oil, develop it, and get it out of the ground, is now about $50 to $55 in the United States. So it's come down from 65, 68, but it's still pretty high because fracking's not.
Will it go down? Will it go further?
I think it will. I think as we get more efficient, as we get better with the technology, we drill faster, we frack better, produce more oil out of the ground, which pays back the cost of drilling the well. I think the cost will come down further. Is it going to ever get to where, conventional assets in the Middle East are 12, 15 bucks a barrel? Probably not. But it can come down further, and I think at the price we see oil at today, $60, it makes most United States economical once again. 43, which was the low earlier this year, was a challenge for a lot of areas.
Now, it produces great jobs, made America independent. Everybody's jealous. All these poor LNG terminals are standing, which were supposed to import gas, are just not doing anything. Right. It's a big success story. Why is public opinion so much against it? What happened with the industry? Didn't they pay any attention to communities, or were they too arrogant, or what happened?
I think it's a good question. I don't know that there's a proper answer, but I think the industry has evidently done a bad job with PR. We've done a job that allowed other folks to speak for us, environmentalist groups, movies, documentaries, images that were, not true and correct became the image of fracking, became the image of what we're doing, and it's misinformation, it's twisted and turned based upon what environmentalist groups want their agenda to be supported by. And I think the industry didn't see that coming. I think we thought we could act as we've acted the last 100 years. The public and the community will tolerate that. And the reality is we operate in a different world now, not just, in us, but me and you. We have social media. We have instant communication. Well, they're chasing Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, and the guy's on his Twitter talking about how there's helicopters outside of his house, and there's some kind of raid going on in the middle of the night, and that's happening, and we knew about that in America within a few minutes. So if we spill oil in a small town in Texas, you're going to know about it here in Denmark within a few minutes in 10 years.
We're in Holland, but in Holland. Yeah.
So, it's an interesting I think the times have changed and the industry didn't see it coming, and I think we could still today do a better job. I would think in 2015 we would have realized, we got to get on board and get this thing turned, because the image of us is not that great, but we still could do a better job today. So it's a bit frustrating sometimes.
You were actually before the big wave, right? In 2004.
Yes.
Why did you get into the business, and why and what happened when that whole wave came?
I think the short answer is luck. But we were in the technology business, providing technology to oil companies. And in 2004, we kind of that was our 5th year of doing that. We decided we would use the technology ourselves, start an E&P or exploration and production company, go drill for oil and gas using the technology. And that was a lot of luck and a lot of good timing, because that was kind of the kickoff year for what happened in the United States. 2004 was a big year. That started the Barnett Shale, where I live in Fort Worth, Texas. And I think, we got lucky. And in a short amount of time, within 5 years, we turned the United States from an importer to a net exporter, essentially, of natural gas. We found so much gas so quickly. People were astonished by it. Now we're finding so much oil. People were also astonished by it, because that should have taken us 20, 30 years to do that, and we did it in 5. So I think it's interesting, and it's neat and cool to be a part of that story. Even a small piece of that story, it was interesting.
Oh, not so small. 500 people, $500 million is not small pocket change.
So, compared to an Exxon, it is.
That's true. Now, what could fracking be for Europe?
Look, there's a huge resource in Europe. You look at, for example, just the United Kingdom. University of Manchester said 400 years of supply of gas. What if they're wrong by a factor of, say, 10, and it's only 50 years? It's still a huge amount of gas. And I think that fracking, we can bring technology and people, and we can put all the resource we want here, but if there's no gas in the ground, well, then there's no need to discuss it. But the reality is there is gas in the ground. And I think we've got to find a way. I think we've got to find a way to produce it safely, economically, environmentally friendly, and get the communities involved. And that's going to be an uphill battle. There's no doubt that Europe is not America, and that the conversation here currently today is more negative than positive. And I think we have to realize that and find a way to move forward. And that's going to be incentivizing landowners. It's going to be proving to people that it's safe, gaining their trust. And that's not going to be easy. And I don't know if people are up for the challenge or not.
Why are you here now?
I'm here because I'm a big advocate that people need to make informed decisions. And I think that there are so many groups operating in Europe that are out in front of the conversation, and all they're talking about is negative, negative, negative. And it's not all negative. It's not, a process that's flawed. It's not a process where you're going to have chemical in your water supply, but that's the message they want to put out there. And if it's the only message you're hearing time and time again, then you start to believe it. So I think I'm here to give the counterbalanced argument that there's two sides of the story, and I'm here to give the other side. Now, you are entitled to believe whoever you want to believe, but you should at least hear both sides of the coin and then pick the side that you believe most.
It was enjoyable listening to Mr. Fracking or Frackmaster or tonight, because he did a very elegant job in telling the positive side about fracking. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you so much.